Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed lunch, and thanks for coming to my talk. I'm going to be talking about AutoML, and hopefully gives you an introduction into AutoML and how to get started with automated machine learning. Uh, so a bit about me, right? I'm Gavita Raghunath. I'm a principal data scientist with Advancing Analytics. So if you've not seen us yet, we've got an amazing claw machine, I think just about that side of us. And yeah, you're guaranteed to win. So if you've not seen us yet or you've not visited us, feel free to come around and talk to us. If you need to get in touch with me after this talk, my details are on the slide. We've also got lots of interesting blogs and videos of data engineering and data science. And it's all accessible via that website, which is on the slide. So we're going to talk about AutoML today. But before I get into the fun bit, so hopefully we get time to do a quick demo, I just wanted to show you a fact about AutoML, which I found pretty interesting, actually. So the fact was published by Gartner about 2 years ago now, saying how AutoML as a market is expected to grow about 44%. And they gave it a time span of 10 years, so by 2030, 40% is the expected growth of AutoML. And as a data scientist, I thought, I'm not sure about this really. That's quite a significant growth. But when you read into it, it makes sense, right? We've got so much of data, we keep collecting lots and lots of data. But if you don't apply data science or machine learning to unleash the value of data, you're not giving that benefit back to the organizations. But the demand for data scientists is increasing because it's very difficult these days to employ data scientists. The second reason why AutoML is getting more and more popular is it overcomes the errors that are inherent when you're trying to build machine learning algorithms, right? So even if you've got a good group of data scientists trying to build out your algorithms, it's prone to errors. So I can see from this angle why AutoML is expected to grow, why it's gaining popularity. However, as I said before, I'm a data scientist. So towards the latter part of last year, right, I started to see this kind of articles and headlines appearing. Is this the end of data scientists? This were being published by Forbes, for example, right? It'd be interesting just to see how many of us here are data scientists. So can I have a show of hands how many data scientists we have in the room? 1, 2, 3. So you're 3 data scientists, right? So if you're like me, you'll probably start to get a bit worried about this kind of headlines. You know, is data science dead in 10 years? Now in 10 years, I'll be 20 again. A bit too young for me to give up my career, right? So I thought, can't have this. So what I really thought of doing was taking a leaf off this guy's book. He is a great philosopher. And he said, right, if you know the enemy, and the enemy here being AutoML, and if you know yourself, here my skills, my data science skills, then you need not fear the result of 100 battles. And I thought, right, I'm going to do just that. I'm going to use AutoML to solve many problems and see what it has to offer for me as a data scientist, as well as what it has to offer to citizen data scientists. So that's what I'm going to do. So in 3 steps, what I'm going to do is talk a bit about AutoML, talk about a bit of machine learning, and then use quite a famous data set here. So we're using a Titanic data set to try and predict the survival of passengers. It's a classification problem. But what I'm going to do is to use AutoML to solve this problem for us. So in 3 very quick steps, we'll go through a demo on how we do this. But before we do that, let's just talk about machine learning, right? Machine learning is a hard problem. It's not an easy one to solve. And if you're trying to create a machine learning model for an organization, usually people see the problem understanding part, and then you've got the model deployment right at the other end, which is success. But in between these 2 bubbles, you've got a lot of different steps that data scientists have to go through. So what does that involve? It involves gathering your raw data, going through your cleaning, making sure your data is good enough. If it's not good enough, then you're there. Feature engineering, right? Creating new features. Then you've got the fun part, which is my 3 blue bubbles. So as a data scientist, this is what I find really fun, where you try to create different models, trying to use the right hyperparameters to tune your models, evaluate each models, and this is really an iterative process. It's fun, it's iterative, but for a lot of organizations, it's time-consuming and can be prone to errors. So this is where AutoML comes in, right? The goal of AutoML is to automate the more tedious parts of machine learning lifecycle. And that's exactly what it does. So what can AutoML do? And I've seen AutoML progress from just starting with being able just to do regression, right through doing classification to time series problems as well. So recently, I used AutoML to solve a regression problem where you're trying to predict energy consumption in buildings, and it did that really well. If you work in a financial company and if you want to build fraud models, I know so many use cases that have used AutoML to create fraud models for companies as well. Quite recently, a lot of AutoML offerings have incorporated time series predictions. So if you own, say, for example, a shop, a supermarket, you're trying to assess the seasonality of a product, you can do that very easily with AutoML as well. So in terms of choices, right, I think these days we're spoiled for choices. You might recognize a lot of these badges out in the slides, and there's even more that I just couldn't possibly fit onto my slide today. A lot of startups, you've got just startups just concentrating on AutoML solely as a feature. You've got the likes of Google, Amazon, and Microsoft there as well, offering AutoML as one of the key features in the product these days. So yeah, we're spoiled for choices. But for today's talk, I had to choose one of those choices, right? So what I've chosen is to use AutoML within Databricks. And there's a reason why I've done this. It's because it's one of the only few solutions out there that offers a glass box approach. So what I mean by this, it's glass box, you can see, and it's transparent, right? A lot of AutoML offerings work on a pretty black box approach. So they solve the problems for you, but you don't know the code behind it. You can't really see the source code behind the models that have been developed. And as a data scientist, I want to know what I'm playing with. I want the opportunity to build upon it. So what we're going to do today is look at Databricks. Let's look at the demo. There's a couple of steps, right, that you need to ensure if you're using Databricks, and if this is the first time, if you open Databricks, you won't see the AutoML option. So there's a couple of things that you've got to do. The first thing being, you've got to make sure you're selecting the right persona. So AutoML falls under the machine learning persona. So if you select that, you'll get that option. The second most important thing is when you spin up a cluster, you've got lots of options there, but if you spin up the wrong cluster, you won't be able to run your AutoML functionality. So you've got to make sure you're spinning up the right cluster. So for AutoML, it's the machine learning cluster that we need to spin up. So with these two things, you then start off to see the shortcuts. So what you'll see is if you do those two steps, you'll get your AutoML shortcut, which will be able to then invoke AutoML and start an experimentation. So let's have a look at that. So when you do that right, you get to this page. I actually wanted to do a live demo, but I've heard the internet connection here isn't very good, so I've got backup slides. And this is what exactly you'd come to. So if you start the experiment of AutoML, you'll get to this page. So within 5 clicks, from receiving your data set, with 5 clicks, AutoML builds it for you, and you can even deploy it with Databricks. So what are those 5 clicks? Number 1, select your cluster that you've spun up. You then choose the problem that you're intending to solve. So again, with Databricks, you've got a choice of whether you're solving a regression problem, a classification or forecasting problem. And then it's a matter of pointing to where your data set lives. And that's, again, it's just a clicky approach. If you're doing a classification or regression problem, you then choose your prediction target accordingly. Experiment name, it does it for you by default, but again, you have the option of giving it a sensible name. And then you've got your evaluation metric. Sometimes it's clever enough to pick up an default evaluation metric for you, but if you don't want to go with F1, for example, there are loads of other choices, right? So the data set that we're working on today is a Titanic data set. So what I've done is I've clicked on my compute. I'm using an ML compute there, so a cluster. It's a classification problem, so when you click on the drop-down menu, it's as simple as just clicking classification. I direct my data set to where it lives. The target that I'm predicting against is whether a passenger survives or it doesn't survive. So that's my prediction target that I've clicked, and that's it. The evaluation metrics here that I've chosen to go with is accuracy, not F1. So it's as easy as that, right? As soon as you do that, it's a matter of just clicking Start on AutoML, and that's it. You sit back, have a cup of coffee, have a cup of tea, and you come back after 60 minutes or so. You've got an opportunity to say whether you want to run it for 60 minutes or 2 hours, and this is what you get. So in the background, it runs all your different models. It goes through all your fancy models. So you've got decision tree, your XGBoost models, your random forest models. It gives you the time it took Databricks to build the models up for you, along with all the metrics. So really useful information. For me as a data scientist, to do that would take a lot of time. So it does that for you automatically. And what it does is the AutoML feature within Databricks, it gives you two very important features, which is the ability to view the notebook, which is the best notebook that it creates based on the metric you've chosen, and the data exploration notebook. So let's have a look at the data exploration notebook. Again, this is a benefit of AutoML within Databricks. It gives you a feel of your data set very quickly. It uses pandas profiling, and it very quickly tells you, right, I've looked at your data set, and you've got 20% missing values. You've got very highly correlated feature sets here, and lots of important stats. And again, if I was doing this, it would probably take me a couple of days, right, if I don't make mistakes, to get a sense of what my data looks like. So if you remember a couple of slides ago, I said the reason I've chosen Databricks today, it's because of its transparency. It gives you the source code, and this is what it looks like. So I've chosen to go with the best model here. And if you open up the best model, you've got the source code for you to play along with. You've got the source code to even have a look and learn from it, if you like. So the best model that Databricks has chosen for us today is a logistic regression model. So again, as a data scientist, I look at it and think, those are interesting parameters, but I think I could add a bit more, parameters. I know that using a certain set of hyperparameters will give me a better result. So this is the kind of feel of what Databricks gives you. Another key important feature is, especially if you're working in the financial sector, it has SHAP built in, which gives you explainability. So a lot of companies now expect to know, if you're building a model, which features contribute towards the prediction. And again, this is all embedded within the notebook. So it's a matter of rerunning your notebook and then understanding what features are really important in the model that Databricks builds for you. What I really like about it is, as a data science, within 4 to 5 steps, again, from choosing your best model, you can get it deployed, again, using all Databricks UI. And that does it really seamlessly, right? You don't have to have your own Kubernetes, write your own Docker stuff. It does it for you very easily. So, are we obsolete as data scientists? So I thought, right, I'm going to prove this out, right? So my first attempt. So if you have not seen Kaggle, it's a data science competition where you get to compete. And here I've used Databricks as a baseline model. And I got about 0.6%, 1 being the highest, 0 being the lowest. As a baseline model, that's done really well for me. So what I did was, I took the notebook, did some feature engineering, built on top of it, and you can achieve better results. So it's definitely not going to make data scientists in this audience obsolete, but it certainly frees up a lot of my time. It empowers data scientists. So what can you do with AutoML? Now, I've shown a classification problem there, but the world's your oyster, really. There's loads of use cases that you could solve as an organization, from sales and revenue forecasting right down to customer segmentation. There's loads of use cases that AutoML has been proven to solve very effectively. So if you needed more proof, This is this is a slide which I'm sharing with you guys. I've shown, for example, PayPal there that have used H2O AutoML very successfully and is still carrying on using H2O AutoML as one of their main models to create fraud detection models where they've achieved 95% accuracy and they've successfully reduced their training time. So, and there's loads and loads of use cases where organizations have used AutoML very successfully to solve problems. So in summary, right, I think it's here. It benefits both data scientists and citizen data scientists. If you want to use it to generate a baseline model, it's a fantastic tool to use. It increases my productivity as a data science. I'll be certainly using it, just to even give me a feel of a baseline model or the predictive powers of a data set. So yeah, that comes to the end of my talk. I think I'm on time. And if you've got any questions, if I've got time, I can answer it. But again, SQL Bits loves feedback, so would appreciate any feedback you might have. And again, there's the company's website address where we've got blogs and videos that talk about AutoML and lots of other stuff. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Go on. Yep. So, yeah. There's loads of resources out there. So if you go into the Databricks website, they do, I think, a churn prediction as well, a segmentation using AutoML. Is that what you're after? Yeah, there's examples. There's a step through. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, there's loads of resources. We can point you to it. Microsoft has got useful resources as well. So yeah, I can point you towards that. Any other questions? No. Luke is itching there. All right, thanks for listening.